Welcome to Something to Talk About from the Bainbridge Island Senior Community Center. We're very glad to have you here. We're going to be talking about the celebration Dia de los Muertos, which is more than one day around here this year anyway. And so we'll discuss that a little bit. But first, I want to thank Fieldstone Communities of Bainbridge Island for sponsoring Something to Talk About. Fieldstone offers independent and assisted living as well as memory care services up on their lovely campus on Rolling Bay. They'd love to tell you about that and day stay programs and respite care programs. And you can come by, take a tour. They'll treat you to lunch or dinner. Call Celia or Jamie in advance to let them know you're coming. 206 594 1010, 206 594 1010. Their website is fieldstonecommunities.com. And we are meeting on the ancestral homeland of the Puget Sound Coast Salish people, specifically here on Bainbridge Island, the Suquamish tribe. The Suquamish have lived on these waters of the Salish Sea since time immemorial, and we honor them and are grateful for their stewardship and for how they are helping us be better stewards of these lands and waters. To introduce our panel, our discussion, Ann Lovejoy is here, and thank you, Ann, for once again putting this program together. We really appreciate your help.
Well, thank you, Reed. I love being able to do this. I'm really happy to have Araceli and Alice with me today because they've been working on the Ofrenda programming at the BIMA, the art museum here on the island, for quite a few years now. What, 8 years, 10 years, something like
11. We just had
11.
our 11th annual celebration.
Wow, right? And one of the things that's so cool about it for me is that it's been growing, educating, inviting, drawing in community steadily. First, it was sort of a curiosity, I think, almost. And then now it's really getting rich, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yes, it's I think it's different every year. There's something a little different every year. But yes, we have grown, we have expanded into new space, and it's bigger.
So, what would people expect if they show up at the museum? What are they going to see?
Well, now that we've had our opening ceremonies yesterday at 11 a.m. and at 3 p.m., the museum is open until the 17th. Your friend is open rather until the 17th of November. And people are welcome to come and bring a small photo of a deceased loved one, person or pet, and place it on the ofrenda in celebration of their spirit. This is something that has touched so many people in so many ways, because through another cultural lens, that of the Mexican American tradition, we're able to look at the cycle of life and appreciate it in a different way. It's a happy occasion. Yes, the passing of a loved one is sad, but for Dia de los Muertos, it's a time to welcome the spirits home and have them feel like they are still very much a part of our lives. The ofrenda, even after 2 ceremonies, which were both full, the ofrenda looked full.
It did.
To me yesterday, and there are candles, and there's a candle for every spirit that has been honored, and we don't extinguish them. We just let that battery run out. People are writing their notes. They're bringing in photos, which is anybody that is watching, listening to this can do. What would you add to that, Araceli?
I would say, as far as the photo goes, it's better to bring a Xerox copy or a copy of a photo. Mm-hmm. Keep your precious photos at home. We don't, we do collect those for those of you that bring in real photos that you can pick up later, but it's just best to bring in a copy. But yes, candles, flowers, or fresh flowers there. There's a lot of different options to honor your loved one.
And one thing that we don't often get a chance to talk about, which I'd like Araceli to share, is what happens to all those flowers and on all those love notes that are on the ofrenda. You want to talk about that?
Sure. So at the end of our event, which, like Alice was saying, the 17th is our last day, we take everything down. All of the candles, of course, are put in a box, and those are separated, but all the love notes that are placed on the altar all of the flowers, the pictures that are copies. We gather, and later on it's placed in a very big piece of handmade paper, then is wrapped up and packaged. And then I have a little fire pit outside, and it's a circular one. So the flowers are then laid as a mandala in the fire pit, and then the package is wrapped up and placed inside, and then it's set on fire and everything is released back up. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. What a wonderful way to honor all those loving thoughts. That's amazing. But for someone who's never been, they walk in and they see this, it looks like a wedding cake, right? There are tears going up, like stacks. So is there a better spot, or does it not matter? What do those represent?
There's a lot of I honestly do not know the full history of that, but there you can look that up, but there are layers, and it represents the different levels of death. And some believe, like, where the children go, it's a different place. Where warriors went, they went to a certain area. So those represent the layers of getting to the underworld. And there's different numbers too. I've heard
7,
9,
yeah.
7.
Yeah.
So
But
Yeah, there's a lot of
that's
different-
interesting for people to research.
Sure.
Because this is a non-denominational event, we don't get into any and much of the history, but it's fascinating because we've got the Aztecs and the Mayans and
yeah.
and then when the Spanish came, those traditions
Cultures.
blended together. And
That's really why it landed on that day. So
Mhm.
it's like you have Halloween, All Hallows Eve, you have All Saints Day, and then you have the Los Muertos, and all of those are from the 30th to the 2nd of November. So
I would encourage people that have not visited yet also to think about coming towards the end of the day when it's starting to get dark, because there is just this beautiful feeling of being in this large room. We have the whole bottom floor essentially of the museum, and the twinkling lights are just beautiful. And that, in Mexico, the celebration would be at night. The people would be gathering their family ofrenda, and then be going to the graveyards where people would be playing music, they would be eating, they would be sitting in silence. And it's just a beautiful feeling of connectedness and
yeah, and just
Mhm.
reverence too.
Reverence.
Just yeah.
Well, Araceli, when we were talking earlier, and I said to me, it seemed like such a sort of cheerful, happy kind of celebration, and you pointed out, yes, it is that, but there's also the very natural sort of intertwining of grief and honoring, of loss and love, and
Yeah.
memories, all that, right?
Yes, yeah, and I think that kind of sometimes gets misinterpreted too. When they're coming, they think, well, you just automatically feel happy about somebody passing, and it's like, oh no, it's just mixed together. But it is celebrating. The focus is on celebration of that life, of the life that you were connected to, that you shared, the memories that you shared, the things that you did together, what was left behind. And that's on this day you are honoring through food, through discussion of memories and shared experiences. So it is an uplifting time, no matter where you are in your grief. You're viewing it in that sense, this life that was here with you.
When we were there kind of getting ready with the outdoor stuff, I noticed a mom and her kids had brought a tray of sugar skulls that they'd made.
Yes, and that mom and her daughters have done that every year for I can't even, since the
Yeah,
girls are
early
little and they're
on.
all grown up. And what they do is they also make kits, so people can, and they sell kits to help them raise decorating kits with the frosting and the sugar skulls already made. And the girls raise money to support the costs of going to soccer camp in the summer. So, and part of that has also been to donate sugar skulls to BEMA, and then they all stayed upstairs in the classroom and helped with the Mexican American traditional crafts, making the papel picada, face painting, playing the game of loteria, making marigold
paper flowers,
flowers,
like tissue
flowers.
Say a little about the papel, the cut paper, because that's a strong decorative element, but I think there's some spiritual qualities to that too. Didn't they? Some people they cut the paper out to show a fish if somebody was a fisherman, or a rose if they were a gardener. Is that still a thing, or?
It can be, yeah. And I think that I'm not too sure on, but I know before paper, before tissue paper came, they were using it's from a plant it's like a fiber that they would just smash and smash and smash, and then that's what they did their detailing out of and cut to display their artwork.
Sort of like papyrus then.
Yeah, I want to say amate is what it's called. I'm not really, I don't want to say the wrong word, but it is it's a fibrous product from tree bark that it's just stripped and combed and matted down as if you were going to make paper, and then they cut in details, and you can that craft is still done today, but not like it was before. But now we're using tissue paper and plastic that you can put outdoors.
But it also signifies the
wind. On when we put it on the ofrenda, the papel picado signifies wind.
When I read it can mean like the arrival of the spirit.
Yes. Right. And I know you're not going to bring this up, so we will. The absolutely incredibly gorgeous flower path and archway that you have now created for a number of years with your garden fairies helpers is the path that the spirits that we believe the spirits follow to come into the ofrenda and be welcomed in. Araceli carries the copal incense. We carried that in. The Mexicans believe that the spirits of deceased loved ones return on the wings of butterflies. So we had our little kitty moo butterfly children following us in. So all these elements bring together a real appreciation and learning of another culture.
And it is a big part of it, because it's before you even get to the ofrenda. So it's the laying out, it's the invitation. And every year it's amazing how beautiful it is.
Well,
but
Rita, who's also here, helped this year to put that together. And we have a number of people who save things from the garden. But one of the pieces for me that involves too is sort of like it's a farewell to summer. It's kind of honoring the change of the seasons and the passage to winter and the darkness. This year, the whole inside of that arch was hung with sweet pea vines that had turned golden. So to me, it was like walking through a passageway of light into what would be the darker, like you walk into the room that's darker with the candles. And it's like the portal idea of moving.
It is.
Yes.
It's a very big piece of, Rita, did you want to say something?
Well, I was just going to say it's like magic. Because at 8 o'clock when we got there was all this stuff along the side of the building. And then at 10:30, it was this beautiful thing. I mean, it's like a butterfly. It's like a cocoon, a butterfly coming out of its cocoon. We have all this stuff. It's the first year I've been able to help with it, but to me, it's just magical. It's just magical. And I was so happy to get to help it. And thank you, Ann, for,
Well, and it also to me honors that, I'm very much a plant person, right? And I've always been really drawn to a lot of the native cultures around the world that give personhood to plants and animals in that way. And I know that a lot of Mesoamerican cultures do that as well. And so looking at like honoring the passage of those plants and seeing the beauty that's left in them, even when they're past their prime or they've passed.
Oh yeah.
We were strewing, when we make those paths, we always use some dead leaves and dead flowers as well as things that are still fresh. And one of the people who was helping us passerby said, I keep taking these dead flowers out. It's like, well, but we're honoring and celebrating the
Yeah,
passage
yeah,
of those things as well. So they belong there just as much as anything else.
Right.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the combination of both together, it's just there's so much meaning, and you can tell the group that comes in and does it with such
Mhm.
love and happiness. It just exudes that. So
Well, I was going to ask you, so, obviously that's probably not something everybody does all over the place every year, but I feel like on Bainbridge, it's become part of a tradition. It's showing me again that like people here are kind of adopting the the ofrenda idea and adopting the idea of honoring the lost ones. And it's changing a little bit, maybe it changes in every community a little bit.
Well, I would I'll add to that because of the history that I don't know that everybody knows, and it's I think it's really important. Uh, Way back in the early '90s, Magali Duarte, who was the Spanish teacher at the high school and was my son's Spanish teacher, she came into my classroom for a parent-teacher conference. I had her son, and she knew I was putting together a study of the culture of Mexico as part of our Pacific Rim Studies unit in third grade. And she gave me a video of a traditional Dia de los Muertos celebration in Oaxaca in a rural village. And Mr. Ortega took us and it was a 32-minute video for 8-year-olds. And it was not bright colors, way before Coco. It was a very
almost like a documentary.
And he took us to the flower mart to buy flowers. He took us to buy the sugar skulls, to buy the candles. And then we came back to his home, and his wife is very quietly, I don't think she ever speaks in the movie, setting things up in the ofrenda. And he really oriented us to the celebration. And one of the things he pointed out was this Coca-Cola bottle on the ofrenda. He was celebrating the spirit of his dad. And he said, you might wonder why there's only one Coke bottle. And that's because I had to work all day to earn the money to buy that. We don't go on holidays. We don't go on out to dinner. We don't go to movies. We spend our time and our energy in honoring our loved ones in hopes that when it's our turn, they will do the same for us. So this, at 32 minutes, the movie stopped. Nothing happened in my room that you could hear a pin drop until one boy's hand went up and said, I think we should have our own Dia de los Muertos celebration. That was not my plan at all. The kids were absolutely unanimously in support of that, and they demanded that we watch it again, 32 more minutes, so they could take notes about all the different things that they had to do. So that was the beginning of Dia de los Muertos. And Cynthia Sears, as we know, founder of BIMA, had been into my classroom a number of times over the years for Dia de los Muertos. So when I retired, she took me out to lunch at BIMA, and she asked me to bring to the community what she saw happening in my classroom around Dia de los Muertos. Parents came as well. And I said, well, I wasn't ready for that either, but I said, I would like to bring Araceli Cruz, who had been a parent in my classroom at Ordway just before I retired, and had come in and shared with us her Mexican-American heritage, doing a lot of wonderful projects with the kids. So that became the team, Cynthia, Alice, and Araceli. So imagine what Cynthia was feeling yesterday as she walked between us, holding our hands with the copal incense in Araceli's hand and following us in to be seated for both celebrations she wanted to be present for. So it was the idea of a child who brought what we are experiencing now to our community. That's pretty powerful.
It is, and how fitting. And it speaks so much, so many people think children should be protected from things like even the idea of death. As a culture, we are terrified of death. And I feel like one of the gifts of the ofrenda, it's a gift and it's right, ofrenda is the offering, but one of the things it offers back to us is the opportunity to kind of widen our worldview and see death as a much more Hello, it's totally natural, right?
Mhm.
Everybody, like, you don't get out of here alive. I've heard that said since I was,
Yep.
but the idea of coming to it without fear, coming to, well, maybe you have
Yep.
some fear or discomfort, but that you see it normalizes and
Right.
makes a much bigger picture for kids and for everybody, really.
There was
Right.
a little girl at the end of the ceremony yesterday who came in her frilly little dress. She's like
Saturday,
5 years, or Saturday,
Yeah.
frilly little dress. And she just walked right out there up to the microphone and waited for somebody to bring the microphone down. So it was in front of her, not that she had, so she didn't have to talk up to it. She was very in command. And she looked out at people and she said, I'm going to put this flower and candle on the ofrenda for my grandpa because he passed away. He's dead. So she obviously didn't know what passed away meant. So just in case you were wondering, he is dead. And she was as natural about it as could be. And then her little friend came up and
Oh,
put
yeah.
her arm around her and helped her to her seat because it's okay, it's okay. And it was just precious.
Yeah.
So we had this whole generational thing happening for those 2 days.
Yeah.
Well, and it's an interesting
Very-
thing that, you know, so many people are more comfortable saying passed away than saying they died.
Yeah.
Like, that's a tough one for, and then here's this child who's like, if you don't know what that means, it means he's
It means you're dead.
lay it out there. Reed, did you want to add something?
Well, I just wondered if we might talk a little about cultural appropriation and whether this is an example of that or not, and why not, or why.
So I have been on the a lead teacher and the director of multicultural education, the lead for the teachers in the district, and served on the multicultural advisory committee. And this was not a term that was used back then. I was in a swim pool class last year, and a couple of women had been to the ceremony and were asking me about it. And we're all excited they had come. And another woman turned around and said, isn't that cultural appropriation? And I said, no, it's not, because the Mexican American community is absolutely approving and encouraging and involved in helping us share their culture. We're learning from them. We had our numbers of Mexican American participants continues to grow. It's a cross-cultural celebration. Their feelings of being included are so important to them. Talked about the last year when was it Rosa who came up and spoke
No,
after
Sandra.
Oh, Sandra.
Yeah. So we've slowly have brought, I mean, this is one thing that we really wanted from the beginning, was to bring in more of the Mexican American in our vicinity. So we have this group that have kind of started to come from Polsbo, and one of them was one of the Catrinas that started coming last year, and she was so elated just that we were doing this, and she said, I feel like I'm home. I am so happy that you are providing this here. And she's like, it's just making me feel very at home. So, and I really feel that when this was Cynthia's idea, and it was a first thought process, and we were throwing around ideas of what it was going to look like, it was really important to stay very authentic. We didn't want it to turn into, I don't know, just like, oh, let's throw in this and let's throw in that.
Mhm.
We really, and that's still our goal, is to stay very true of what it is. It is the ofrenda. It is an honoring of your loved one, and we're not adding little extras here and there.
Through another culture, we are coming to appreciate the cycle of life and in a new way, and celebrate together. We have the family. I don't know if you know about Cake Studio Panaderia Mexicana in Polsbo. A number of years back, we thought, we're having blackbirds make the pan de muertos. I thought we need to have this, that we have a growing Mexican American community in the Latin American community in our county, and let's find somebody to make it that's of that culture. And so now Luis and Lily of Cake Studio Panaderia Mexicana not only make our pan de muertos, they made the cookies for our poetry workshop last night. They
make
come
the
to
chocolate.
they
made
come to the
atole before.
ceremony. He speaks to he's very shy. He comes up with his daughter and speaks in Spanish because he doesn't trust his English. And she translates. We have more Katrina showing up every
They wanna
year. People
participate.
should go online. I don't know who's looking at the pictures, but I think you'll see that this is a cross-cultural celebration that where there's just nothing but loving appreciation and buy-in.
Oh, thank you. Rita, did you want to say something?
Yeah, could you explain what the Katrinas are? Are those the girls that were dressed up in all those beautiful costumes? Or-
Yeah,
They're not costumes, they're their native dress. Can you explain about that?
well, a lot of that stems back from an artist named Jose Posada, and he was a Mexican artist who was kind of a political artist who was trying to speak against the ones people in charge. It was mainly based on rich versus poor, the poverty that was going on in Mexico. And so through his artwork, he was showing, doesn't matter how rich you are. So he drew these women as skeletons and men with top hats, dressed over the top, but as a skeleton, meaning that doesn't matter how much money you have, we're all gonna
be dead. We're all gonna be skeletons.
So that's kind of what the whole Katrina and Catherine. So if it's a man, it's a Catherine, gentleman or woman, it's a Katrina. So that's where that comes from.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we actually have some slides, I believe. Reed, is that correct?
I have a couple of pictures that you just sent me a couple minutes ago.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah.
So this is at the front entrance, and you can sort of see it is a real celebration, isn't it? But it's also an honoring, like I was saying before. This is the front entrance of the museum. I don't remember who that is. Do you remember, Araceli?
Her name is Rocio. And so she has been my friend for many years. Her daughter, Valeria, and my daughter, Trinity, are now roommates in a house that they're renting, and they're both in college up at Western, and they started school together here on the island in kindergarten together. So
Wow. So, and that her cape is a butterfly, right?
Yes, a
yes.
monarch. Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's gorgeous.
Yeah, so Rocio's she's been the force behind recruiting other Catrinas to come and participate.
It was wonderful to see such beautiful costume. Well, I don't know. Is it appropriate to call them a costume? It feels like.
Yeah.
And there you are with your copal. Do you want to say a little bit about incense?
So the incense is it's called copal, and it's a tree resin that's scraped off, and it's very ooey and gooey until it dries and it hard. So it looks like a piece of rock. It's like a rock. And then for us to burn it, it's placed on a little charcoal cube, and then you light the charcoal, and that gets nice and hot so that the copal will just sort of melt and bubble and smoke out of that. But it's a very pungent smell, like around something similar to frankincense.
Mhm.
Myrrh.
It's a
anything like
lovely
that.
smell.
Yes.
I noticed that it was. Is it like a smudging thing or invitational? Like sending out the scent?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's calling the
Spirits.
souls.
And also, and the copal tree is the same kind of, is the type of tree that men in Oaxaca will cut down and carve into the beautiful Mexican alebrijes, mythical creatures, and that the women paint. So it's an incredibly important plant and tree in their culture.
So this is the invitational pathway you were saying, right? That this is like an invitation to
Yeah.
draw the spirits in.
Yes. And it's just lovely the way you did it. I love how the pathway itself, you have all the color, There's color, there's flowers that are just kind of on their way out. You know, you have some fresh ones, and then you get to the archway, and it's just this, it's just beautiful because you're passing through it, and it's, those plants are past their prime, definitely. And you're just passing through that. So it's a visual cue, significance of what is happening here. What are you leading into?
That's
So
real
it's just
artistry
gorgeous.
to have done it that way.
Yes.
Really.
Well, it's meant to be a portal, and it's like the other end of birthing, right?
Beautiful.
Birth into the world, and then the next portal is going to take you out, right? And so
Right.
going into the spirit world, or passing out of the color and richness of life into. Thank you, Reed, for doing that.
Thanks, Reed.
Yeah, and boy, we didn't take indoor pictures, but people can still go. And what will they find inside? Because there's some wonderful displays.
We have 14 classrooms worth of artwork in the museum that when we showed up on Saturday, on Friday morning,
to set up.
there
yes.
was just the art that had been on display for a couple of weeks. So when you go in now, all those teachers had a deadline to get their artwork, their student artwork in by, and then on that morning, on Friday morning, Greg Robinson, bless his heart, and his incredible installation crew spent hours and hours into the night hanging all of that. And these are exhibiting artists who are so proud when they walk in the door and are pointing out their work to their parents. And we decided that they need to be honored on their own. So next Sunday, we're having a private showing, a private event for the exhibiting artists and their parents.
Their students, yes.
The students and their parents. And Greg is going to put on a lovely reception for them, and they'll be coming with their parents, grandparents, whomever. But there were already over 200 people that responded. This was a week ago.
Right.
So who knows how many now.
And this is something, you know, when
We've
you're
never done it.
when you're asking about how it's evolved, when we started off, we had maybe 3 different schools that participated with student artwork that was added to the Ofrenda exhibit. And now, you know, like Alice was saying, we're up to 14 different classes, or classrooms. So you walk in and it's just, there's so much to look at. There's just pops of color and all different mediums of art. So we really have had a lot of teachers that have come on board that have just taken this on and run with it.
And there's a lot of Araceli's work up as well, aside from the panels on either side of the ofrenda. Has little ofrendita boxes that are in display that I'd like her to talk about. Plus, many of her own art pieces are hanging on the walls. Would you talk about your ofrenditas?
Sure. So if you were looking at the ofrenda and everything that's on it, like Alice was saying, we have the pan de muerte, we have the copal, which the incense, there's a little bowl of salt to represent purity in the earth. There's water. So there's just all these little elements that you are traditionally what you would place on your ofrenda. So I have created something that is much smaller, and it's in a box that has all those components, just smaller, that you can pack away. But if you wanted to have something at your home and just a little something to honor your loved one, everything fits in this little box. And then on the inside, each one has a different painting on the inside. And
she's done them all, everything handmade.
And most of the paintings are all based on Mayan hieroglyphs. So I'm very interested in that, and the history and some symbolism of each one. And a lot of that is still being discovered today. They still don't know what they all mean. And anyway, I find that fascinating. So I've incorporated that into my artwork.
Well, I think I might have mentioned to you that these videos get posted, and then a lot of people watch them afterward, which is why I would like to make sure that people know that there's still time, right? You
Yes.
can,
Yes.
and up till the 17th, you said?
November 17th. Yes.
Yeah. And then are there costumes this year? I don't think I saw that.
Costumes?
Well, sometimes once I remember seeing like,
Oh, last year.
yeah, last year there were mannequins or
His
something with
mom brought costumes,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, that was one of
That was
our,
an exhibit.
that was an
last
exhibit,
year.
yep. So just the ones that there were some pretty elaborate Katrina
Yeah.
outfits, but and then last year we had Martita May, who is the founder of Kitsap Immigration and Assistance Center. She came in her folklorico dress and she wove dancing through the people through the people that were journeying forward into the through the archway. She has a horrible eye infection and couldn't come this year. We also had our mariachi player last year came with his two daughters
yeah.
who are
Yeah.
now in Oaxaca for Dia de los Muertos, and they came in their regalia, and last year they cleared away the chairs after the celebration, and those women can dance. All the Katrinas got out there, and there was just such a beautiful celebratory nature of it,
Mhm.
with people coming up to us all the time saying, thank you, thank you, thank you for giving us this opportunity to celebrate our traditions with you, to
Mhm.
share our traditions with you.
So it's different every year, sounds
Yep,
like.
It's a little
yeah,
different
it's a little
every year.
different.
Yes.
You know, I sort of get stuck on the outside and I don't always get all the way in
Yeah.
past the
Well-
ofrenda, but there's so much to look at. And I think that piece, like when going back to what Reed said, is this cultural appropriation. I feel like it's cultural appreciation.
Yes,
Yeah.
And there's
yes,
a generosity to it.
Yeah.
And in the same way that our friends like Akuye Vargas will invite anyone to come to Kwanzaa and
yes,
experience
yeah, exactly.
from it. It's like a teaching that goes beyond the family. I mean, it is a family tradition and it's about that, but it's also generous and it's community based as well.
A couple of people came up and said, I'm not even Mexican. I'm not even Latin.
Okay.
I'm not even, don't even have Latin American roots. And I'm
We're like,
sitting in
"That's
my
okay."
thinking, so that doesn't have anything to do with, they didn't feel like, and maybe it's their feeling like there's this issue about cultural appropriation. They then, when they got into this midst of being in a very integrated environment, they were being welcomed into, come in and learn from us, share with us, and we can become closer.
Yeah, and that's such a, right now when there seems like
need
so
it.
much division in
We
our
need it.
world,
We need
that
it.
unity is so beautiful and so healing. And you know, death is a unifier too, right? I
Yep.
mean,
Yeah.
like,
It really is. I mean, I feel that that's what this is really about. It's about connection.
Mhm.
It's really about that we are connected, and through each other, through grief, through celebration, it's all connection. And even through the transformation of, you know, living and dying, it's a transformation. And through that, then you connect again. And yeah, it's just connection.
so did you do this kind of celebration in your own homes with your kids?
I do. I don't have one up this year. I have a very little, just family pictures. Alice also does one, but yes, it's something that I grew up with. Maybe not. They can an ofrenda can be really anything. It could be a very small area in your home where you're putting up pictures. Maybe it's just a candle.
Mhm.
It really is just whatever you want it to be when you're consciously thinking about the person that has passed on. That's what it is. So for me growing up, one grandmother she kind of had her ofrenda over a bookcase. Like I remember the pictures. I had my other grandmother had hers at the end of the hallway. So being younger, going over, it was always lit up with candles. And I always just remember seeing it, and there were pictures and asking, oh, who's this? And that's how I didn't know my father's father. He had passed away way before I was born, when my dad was still a teenager. But I know him through the stories. I know, and I think that that's what this is. Again, connection. You see those pictures are up, you talk about them, you celebrate them on this day, you bring them up in conversation. Oh, remember when la la la, just love that, or she would say this and eat that, or and it just becomes, that's how I feel as being very young. I didn't know him, I know the
Mhm.
pictures, but I have a sense of who he is. And I feel like I know him, and I think that's what's just ingrained. And so it's not something where he feels like, oh, uh, I don't know who he was. And that is one thing that's come out of conversations with other people that attend, that have said to us, I've lost somebody, but our family never talks about them.
Mhm,
We've
mhm.
never had that, given
Mhm.
that license to share or bring him up in conversation, because they don't know how each other are going to react to that. And that seems so foreign to me, because everybody, like I said, everybody talks about our family members who have passed on. So if that's what we're bringing, and people feel like they have this freedom where they can come and even walk up and put a candle down and write a love note to somebody that they can't say their name, that,
Right?
yeah.
I
That's a
had a couple, I had, when we first started doing this in my classroom, and there was like, this image stays in my mind. We created the flower path, and in those days, we used real tea lights. Um, can't do that anymore. Um, and it would sit in a circle, and it gathered, and the kids would take turns coming up, and they'd already prepared this. I gave them, they knew at home that they needed to choose a person, talk about it. And there was a little information sheet that could write down some words if they needed to help them remember when they were going to be celebrating them by putting the flower on the candle and the ofrenda. And it came to this little girl. I can't remember her name. All I remember is she came in with this adorable little pink dress and a cube of butter. And she sat, and her mom was in the audience. There were always parents that came. And when it got to be her turn, she was sharing that this was the dress that her grandma, who died before she was born, had bought for her, and that she really liked butter. And then, her mother was in the audience, and afterwards came up to me and said, thank you so much for this opportunity. As many parents did, we've never talked about my mom with my
Oh.
daughter. We've never had that opportunity. And she had all these questions, and we brought out the pictures of when my mom was a little girl and showed to her daughter. So it's just this gift of not keeping it hidden away in a box of pictures. The life of somebody who has so much meaning still.
And what a rich gift, because
Yeah.
again, like that, just uh, the connection to your family, to ancestors, that's really precious. And a
Mhm.
lot of people, I was reading something about Juneteenth the other day, and they talked about how people used to always go to the home place for picnics. And now there's no home place. People are gone. They've
Um,
moved all over the place. And so it's much harder. So the celebration like this, and maybe similarly, people are not in their village anymore, right? But here we're creating another place where that is a different kind of community that's
mhm.
open to anybody. But it's a place you can bring your memories. It's a place you can bring your grief and your joy and your stories. I know I'd love to sit down and listen to stories when people bring
Well,
their.
Araceli, tell the audience about your poetry workshop last night.
Oh, so last night we had a poetry workshop at Bima, and it was hosted by Michelle Bombardier, who is our local poet laureate. And she did a wonderful job of she read some of her poetry, and like she kept saying, she says, I'm a little deathy, meaning that she writes about death quite a bit. She said she has really worked through a relationship with her father now that he's passed, through her poetry. But it was really a wonderful opportunity for people in all, wherever you are, in missing your loved one who has passed on. Is it something that's just currently happened? Is it something that's happened years ago and you haven't thought about that person? And here's an opportunity to write, to just sit and think, be with your thoughts, and have some time to write. And she gave us lovely prompts. We had 3 prompts to write on, and it was really interesting. I thought, just like, especially for me, like she sent me a thing letting me know what the prompts were, and the first one was to write a letter write a letter to whoever it is that you're thinking of. Like she said, whoever comes to mind. So like I said, I had seen that. I read the prompt before when she had sent that to me, and I thought, oh, that's going to be really nice, and oh, I can write about.
She said, tell them what you miss about
Yes,
them,
what you miss,
and what you'd like them to know.
right. And
Yeah.
so I thought, oh, that's going to be lovely. I can, write to my grandparents. I can write to a friend who's passed. I had options, but I sat down to write, and it was my dog that came to mind. so there I am writing this letter of, oh, what you've missed and what I miss about you. And
I think we should do that again. Everybody had a journal and a pencil, and the best thing for everybody was that you weren't expected to share.
yes,
It wasn't a sharing.
no, it wasn't sharing.
She finds that to be intimidating and not appropriate for what she's trying to do, but everybody has the results of what they wrote on the prompts to do with
You
or
go
not do with.
home
Yeah.
and let it sit with you.
It looks like Joan would like to say something.
I just wanted to say, keep telling the stories. I love them because I have a great story myself, and we don't.
Let's
have
hear your
time.
story. Oh,
No. It's just that my daughter has a altar in her base, in her first floor. As you come into the house and you see that altar, it is out of this world. But anyhow, I keep going with the stories. Bye.
thank you.
Oh, I love that.
Mhm.
No,
It's
that's
interesting to me because tomorrow we're having a writing group meets at the senior center on the first Tuesday of each month, and we're supposed to bring up prompts for each other. And I thought, well, that's a great prompt right there, isn't it? I might just borrow that from Michelle. I think it's actually one that I've seen around before, but I love that honoring your pet acknowledges the connection and bond that we have with our. I mean, we sleep with them sometimes, right? These are
Yeah.
very
Every single night we're sharing the bed.
right. Looks like Susan
our
would like to
dog.
say something. Susan, did you want to jump in?
Hi. Yes, first of all, Araceli, I just thought I looked it up really quickly, and the type of paper is the amate,
yeah.
and it's a type of paper made from the bark of fig and mulberry trees,
Oh, right.
and has been used in Mexico since pre-contact times. And amate comes from the Nahuatl word amati, which means paper.
Thank you.
And then I just wanted, yeah, that was so wonderful. The other thing was to go back to this writing of a letter to someone who has died. I think of our young people today on their phones all the time.
Oh, yes.
And this would be a wonderful, first of all, they could practice their penmanship. But second of all, to really reflect instead of being stimulated with the phone, And I'm going to recommend this to my grandchildren.
I think it's a great idea, and let us know somehow how that goes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will.
It's
Okay.
hard. It's hard having, I have a 7-year-old grandson, and it's Nintendo, it's Star Wars, it's all this stuff that it is a new technology, is a new language. And they're
Mhm.
and he's but sitting down and reading or having conversations that he might not, that he's not the center of, is always an ongoing challenge. But how old are your grandkids?
I thought you were talking about my grandson.
No, my
My grandchildren, my younger ones are on Bainbridge Island. I come to visit lengthy time in the summer and maybe this coming March. They are 11, 8, and 6.
Okay.
Yeah, and they, the screen time is like it's
Yep.
like the
Crazy.
magnet.
Crazy.
And I think I'm gonna, focus on, giving them this idea, maybe of writing anything, a letter to anyone, whether they're dead or alive. I don't know.
Yeah. Or just writing. Tell us about the butterfly in your background.
The butterfly, I'm from New Mexico. I grew up in New Mexico. Y no puedo hablar mucho español, pequeño, solamente.
Okay, entiendo.
But this is an artist that I grew up with, who did acrylic work, and how my late husband, got that for me. And Danny had started going into the mountains and taking photographs of nature, and he, found this butterfly and other creatures that he started painting.
Beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful. Thank
Yes.
you.
Yeah,
Very
Nice.
fitting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
we're
that's
coming-
me too. I grew up in the Southwest, so I'm from Tucson, Arizona.
Ah,
And so it's very much you probably same for you, just the how intermingled the culture is.
yes.
So yeah, so it's really, I think that was one thing for me to come here, and that there was a void for me, just missing that mixing of cultures. So this has been really filling that little spot.
And getting to know some people on Bainbridge Island, because usually I'm, cleaning house, helping with the grandchildren and stuff. But I'm the same. I grew up in Pojoaque, which is north of Santa Fe. So I
Okay.
grew up with Pueblo Indians, Navajo, Hopi, Spanish Americans, Mexican Americans, mestizos, all of that. And I never knew there were supposed to be lines, which
Yeah.
you see, as life has gone on, that we're supposed to separate people out. I never was asked to do that, nor did I ever feel excluded.
Wow,
And it was
that's
a
wonderful.
gift, but
Mhm.
my reality is I'm aware now that some people didn't have that. And maybe in Tucson you felt the same. You just
Yeah, just everybody.
intermingled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Anyway.
thank you. We're just running out of time here, but I want to ask if anybody has one last thing they want oh, here you go.
Oh, good.
Neat.
Through the 17th. Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
thank you, Reed.
Yep.
It's definitely worth a visit. And if you miss it this year, you can certainly go catch up next year, because it's a firm tradition. It's not going away, right?
That's right. And we always appreciate involvement and new ideas. And so anybody that's listening, reach out to us in any way that you
Yes.
can.
Yes, we will. This is the whole thing. This is a community event. It's very, we want that.
Very true.
Even setting up the floral entryway, I have a team of people who help me. There are 5 of us who do it. But by the time we start getting a little deeper in and people start walking by, everybody who passes by is offered the opportunity. And the children, everybody wants to put down the pretty things, the hydrangeas or the dahlias and stuff. But it's
good. I didn't
because the
realize
moms
that.
and the
That's
kids and the
lovely.
grandparents and guys walking their dog, everybody's like, okay, I can do that. But again, it's a community piece and everybody's welcome to participate. I think that's so beautiful.
And even before that, there are some people that from the very beginning we put out a call. Was it Facebook that you put out a call? If anybody's cutting down their hydrangeas or cutting greens, we'll take them. We still have people every year like, do you want my hydrangea cutting? And they drop them off at BEMA. So it's evolved, it's grown. There's people that just do what they can and do what means something to them to participate and be part of. So yes, it's definitely a community event.
Thank you very much, ladies.